I'm Anna Urban, and this is the Wildly Different podcast. I'm going to talk about all the wildly different takes out there on ADHD, neurodivergence, spirituality, manifestation, the meaning of life, trauma, shame, joy, purpose, and of course, all the actionable, practical strategies from the super scientific to the super esoteric. Some episodes will leave you with more questions than answers, but that's exactly the point. Is ADHD a disorder or a gift? Are we here to hack our time or maybe even to reimagine what productivity looks like entirely? How do we get ourselves to do the things we say we're going to do, even when every cell in our body would rather do something else? Are we neurodivergent, or are we aliens from Atlantis sent here to evolve humanity? Are supplements a scam? What's the deal with ADHD meds, and why do we have so much drama about it? If any of these questions resonate with you, then you've come to the right place. Let's get untamed. Welcome back to the Wildly Different podcast. I'm your host, Anna Urban, and today we're diving into a reframe that will literally change your life if you let it. And I know that is a big statement, but I stand by it 110%. If you have ever been stuck in a loop of overthinking, self-doubt, or just feeling like you are spinning your wheels, this episode is for you. Because we're going to explore a very simple but powerful question. Is this serving me? Let's get into it. When I first started coaching, I thought most of what I do would be about time management, right? People think, oh, ADHD, distracted, poor time management, teaching people to plan their day, to tackle their to-do list, to stop procrastinating, all the stuff everybody thinks they struggle with when they have ADHD. But in reality, it's almost never about purely time management. What I've learned is that the root of our struggles is way deeper. It is way, way, way deeper. It has to do with our identity, our ego, our shadow, the parts of us that we suppress. It has everything to do with self-awareness and with our mindset. So think about it. How many times have you found yourself stressed out, overwhelmed, feeling stuck, not because of what was happening, but because of the story you're telling yourself about it? Or rather, you think it's because of what is happening, but in reality, it's the story that you're telling yourself about it. So for example, let's say that you're in your mid-40s and you just got diagnosed with ADHD, right? For some people, that diagnosis can trigger relief, it can trigger sadness, it can trigger anger. So the situation is neutral, but it's the thoughts that we have about it that determine our experience. So I'll give you an example of two thoughts. One thought could be, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. This makes so much sense. Another thought could be, if only I'd been diagnosed 10 years earlier, my life would be totally different. I want you to ask yourself, which of those two thoughts are serving you? Which of those two thoughts are serving you? And I'm not saying like, oh, you should be relieved. No, you have every right to feel angry. You have every right to feel, cheated. You have every right to feel stunned. You have every right to feel exactly what you're feeling. But your feelings are not facts. It's what happens after that that determines the life that you get to live. So if the only thought that you were giving attention to is, if only I'd been diagnosed 10 years earlier, my life would have been totally different. I wouldn't be in this situation now. Okay, how much time are you spending ruminating on that thought? It's one thing to validate yourself. Validation is absolutely important. People need to feel seen. But is that the only place that you're allowing yourself to go, is in validation? If the only thought that you are creating space for is one that leads to resentment, is that serving you? Is that serving you? I can't believe they just said that to me. Don't they know how much I do for this family? What about that thought? Is that thought serving you? Or, I just can't seem to get it together. Why is everything so hard for me? Is that thought serving you? One mantra that I share with my clients in Untamed is data, not drama. What is the data here? What are the facts? What are the things that you could argue in a court of law? What is the data? Okay, so and so said this to me. That is a fact. What is that making me think? What is that making me feel? That is now the drama. And it can be good, bad, or neutral. But the situation itself does not automatically create the thoughts. Like those thoughts, those emotions are all options. And we get to choose which one we act on. We're going to be thinking all of the things. We're going to be thinking all of them, but we get to decide which ones we get to act on. And that's what validation is all about. You're allowed to have your process. You're allowed to think whatever you want to think. You're allowed to feel whatever you want to feel. But the actions from your thoughts and your emotions, are those actions serving you? It's okay to think and feel whatever you want, but is it bringing you to a place that you actually want to go? Thoughts are real. Feelings are real. They're valid, but we don't have to act on every thought or every feeling. Are they helping you grow? Are they helping you take aligned action, or are they keeping you stuck? The question, is this serving me, isn't about toxic positivity or gaslighting, right? That's a word that gets thrown around a lot. Gaslighting, right? Let's look up the definition of gaslighting. Gaslighting is when you're telling someone that they're not allowed to think the way that they're thinking or feel the way that they're feeling, or you're telling them one thing and then you go around and you say, "Oh, I never said that." That's gaslighting. I think a lot of times when what people think is gaslighting is actually just the truth, and the truth hurts, right? Pretending everything is great when it's not, that's not serving you, right? It's about creating space between what's happening and how you respond to it. It's about creating space between what's happening and how you respond to it. It's about giving yourself permission to pause, to zoom out, and to ask, what am I thinking right now? What is that making me feel? What's within my control? Who do I want to be in this situation? I want to give you an example. So today, at the day that I'm recording this, it's Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving in the US. And my son is actually sick. He has a stomach bug. He's actually napping right now. I had to pick him up from school early yesterday. I got to pick him up from school early yesterday. I'm catching myself. But the point is, there are a lot of things that I could think about this situation. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening right now. I can't believe he's sick the day before Thanksgiving. We're supposed to be hosting, blah 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 blah, on and on and on, right? I can't handle this. Or even, we get real meta about it and we say, I can't believe I got upset about something like this. Right? It doesn't just stop at like getting upset. Now we're judging ourselves for getting upset. And on and on and on. But what if instead we pause and we say, okay, this is happening. This is the fact. I get to decide how I show up in this moment. I still get to decide whether this is the one of the most memorable Thanksgivings we ever have. I get to decide, based on how he's feeling, if we cancel the whole thing. And I get to decide how I act if we happen to cancel the whole thing, right? Like, our situation is always neutral. Okay, you're exhausted, you're frustrated, maybe you're even a little bit resentful. Fine, that's valid. That is valid. But then how do we want to act from that place, right? Are we setting ourselves up to feel empowered, or are we setting ourselves up to feel worse? I want you to ask yourself, in a situation, kids are going to get sick. Adults are going to get sick, right? Is this serving me? If you are thinking a thought like, I can't believe this is happening, I can't handle this, is this serving me? Probably not. So what can you do? Maybe you let go of, some of the appetizers you were going to make and just swing by ShopRite or Whole Foods and pick something up, right? Like maybe you lean on your partner or neighbors or friends or whatever. This isn't about making everything feel good all the time. It's about navigating the hand that we're dealt, right? Here's another example, navigating relationships. Have you ever found yourself overanalyzing a comment that somebody made or replaying a fight in your head on a loop, right? As those of us with ADHD, we do have some executive function thingies going on that can sometimes make it so that we do get caught in a loop of ruminating. The way out of it isn't with more rumination, it's by externalizing. So that means either saying it out loud to someone, like to a safe person, or a voice memo, or journaling it, but we have to get it out of our body, right? And so, okay, so we know that that is a fact. Like, I am prone to ruminating. That is a tendency. It's not who I am. So maybe there's a tension with a family member, right? Maybe it's the holidays, right? Or maybe there's a friend who's just not showing up for you. Instead of staying stuck in the story of, why do they always treat me this way? Or I should just cut them off completely. Ask yourself, is this serving me? Oh, my mother-in-law always nitpicks at, my parenting or what my kids eat, or, whatever. Is this serving me? Can you allow her the dignity of having her own process? Okay, so she says something to you. Do you have to take the bait? No, you do not. Can you prep ahead of time so that you don't feel, blindsided when these things inevitably happen? Like, normally we act, so shocked as if these things have never happened before. But if your mother-in-law is giving you a hard time, most likely she's given you a hard time before, right? So we can plan for this. Is this serving me? This is where growth mindset versus fixed mindset comes into play. In a fixed mindset, you are focused on blame and what is wrong. In a growth mindset, you ask, what can I control here? What do I need to feel safe? What do I need to feel supported? And often what you need is to support yourself, is to feel supported by yourself, right? We cannot control other people. Sometimes the answer is boundaries. Sometimes it's letting go of needing someone to validate your feelings. And sometimes it's recognizing that the relationship just doesn't align with your values, and that is okay. Give people the dignity of having their own process. Stop trying to force them into a process that isn't theirs or that they're not ready for yet, right? Or force them to see what you see, because you are taking on more than what you're supposed to be taking on. There's this duality to growth. I want to qualify this by saying that growth does not always have to be suffering. Like, we don't always have to suffer through, unsafe relationships, or suffer, with ADHD. That's not, like, I personally don't believe that life is made for suffering. I believe that we are here for unconditional love, for joy, for peace. Yes, it can be uncomfortable to sit with the facts of life in order to experience love, joy, peace, right? It is okay to experience discomfort. It doesn't have to be suffering. We can find the purpose, the meaning in it. Discomfort and suffering are not the same thing. It doesn't mean like, oh, I always have to take the high road, or I always have to turn the other cheek. No. You are allowed to feel uncomfortable emotions, right? But you have to differentiate between what is mine and what is theirs, right? Where am I playing the victim? Growth happens when you are willing to ask yourself hard questions and take aligned action, even when it is hard, right? But it also happens when you give yourself grace, when you give yourself self-compassion, when you give yourself boundaries, when you allow yourself to rest, when you outsource things, when you delegate things, when you just take things off of your list, when you take things off of your list. When you remember that struggling doesn't mean that you're failing. So the next time that you find yourself stuck in indecision or spiraling or self-doubt or ruminating, I want you to ask yourself, is this serving me? Are my thoughts empowering me, or are they sabotaging me? Am I showing up in alignment with my values, or am I reacting from a place of fear or frustration? not just reacting, but am I acting on it? It is okay to have an automatic reaction, right? That is our pain, our shame, and our programming that we have to deal with. And it's going to take time to undo, to get back to our whole, worthy, untamed selves. But am I now judging myself for having a reaction, or am I just taking different actions from that point? What is one small thing that I can do to move forward, even if it's just 1% better than before? Because the truth is, no one cares about your attitude or your mindset as much as you do. This is about you, your growth, your joy, your life. So, again, at the end of each episode, I leave you with a question. And I know that today I started with a question, but I want to add on to that. So, today's question is, what is one thought, one belief, one behavior that's no longer serving you? And you can take inventory over the next hour, over the next day, over the next week, and just jot down all of the thoughts that come up, good, bad, neutral. And I want you to ask yourself, what is one of these thoughts that is no longer serving you? And what can you do to release it? Take some time to sit with it, journal about it, or just notice when those thoughts come up. Maybe they come up at certain times of day, right? Or around certain people. And I want to remind you that you have the power to choose a new story. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Wildly Different podcast. If this resonated with you, share it with a friend, tag me on social media. I'd love to hear your takeaways. Until next time, keep asking yourself, is this serving me? And let's get wild.